Next on the Rockbridge Report, the president and the head of the CDC have wildly different timelines on a coronavirus vaccine. We'll dive into the controversy. And Tropical Storm Sally left a trail of destruction through Alabama and Florida. We'll show you what danger is still to come. And then, Shauna will tell you if today's heavy rain is here to stay. And later, LeBron James has set another monumental record in the NBA. Brennan will give you all the all-star details. All that and more on this edition of the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Lily Mott and I'll be joined later in the newscast by fellow news anchor Donald LeCompte, weather with Shauna Muckle, and Brennan Black on sports. The CDC director says Americans should not get their hopes up too soon when it comes to the coronavirus vaccine. In a congressional testimony Wednesday, Dr. Robert Redfield said a vaccine may be ready as early as November. But as CNN's Erica Hill reports, Redfield also said it may take much longer before it becomes available to the general public.
A vaccine is in the works, but
when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life? I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
The back half of next year. While we wait, the president is still insisting the virus will soon go away.
It is going to disappear. It's going to disappear.
It's not disappearing. On the same day Mr. Trump made that claim, the U.S. recorded more than 39,000 new cases and almost 1,300 deaths, the most in nearly a month.
We are on the verge of exceeding 200,000 deaths. I'm very concerned that the next few months may be amongst the worst months that we have experienced.
Our daily trends map shifting in the wrong direction. 23 states now red, posting a rise in new cases over the past week. 34 reporting an increase in deaths during that same period.
And at what point do the American people say enough?
New analysis shows racism and discrimination have contributed to higher hospitalization and death rates for people of color. Separately, the CDC noting children and teens from minority groups are also disproportionately impacted by the virus, though overall, less than 0.1% of the nation's coronavirus deaths have been in those under 21. Testing also moving in the wrong direction, down, despite continued promises from the task force.
I said we will have the availability of 90 million tests in September. I never stated that we would do 90 million tests in September. We're certainly hoping that the testing goes up.
Wisconsin testing wastewater around the state to find the virus before it hits. An early August wedding at this site in Maine, which exceeded state gathering guidelines, is now linked to 176 cases and 7 deaths.
And when they came together, it was sort of like a powder keg that was giving off sparks.
Announcing its football season will now kick off next month with daily antigen testing. No fans, though. The president praising the move and taking credit in a tweet. The White House press secretary emphasizing the states with those Big Ten teams.
And now you will have players in Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, Mississippi, and Nebraska, who will now have access to football.
The Big Ten announcement came as more coronavirus outbreaks keep cropping up at colleges and universities. These schools have seen more than 50,000 cases in all 50 states. Cal Fire Battalion Chief Justin Silvera worked 36 days straight battling wildfires and evacuating residents in Northern California. He and his crew have sometimes been on duty for 64 hours at a time, their only rest coming through 20-minute naps. Silvera is one of nearly 17,000 firefighters responding to the blazes in California. This year's fires have substantially withered down the human, mechanical, and financial resources of the nation's wildfire fighting forces. But half of the fire season is yet to come. Former FBI Director James Comey is set to testify before Congress. Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham says Comey will appear before the committee on September 30th. Comey is voluntarily testifying about the FBI's 2016 Russia investigation. It's unclear if Comey will testify in public or behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Senator Graham also said former special counsel Robert Mueller declined an invitation to appear before the committee because he doesn't have enough time. And locally, in-person absentee voting starts tomorrow. If you've applied for absentee voting, you can come to the registrar's office in City Hall on East Washington. You will need a mask to enter, and only one person will be let in at a time. Kate Crossman and Amber Poole have dropped out of the city council race, but their names are printed on the ballots. The registrar is providing a supplement with each ballot. The supplement explains Crossman and Poole are no longer running. Next on the Rockbridge Report, Vice President Mike Pence visited VMI last week. We'll show you how protesters responded.
As you can see, it's a rainy day here in Lexington, but the next few days offer hope for some sunny skies as temperatures begin to cool down. Stay tuned for more weather.
And later, some local parents aren't happy with virtual learning in Lexington schools. Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Donald LeCompte. The VMI campus is still abuzz exactly 1 week after cadets enthusiastically welcomed Vice President Mike Pence to an event closed to the public. But uninvited protesters did not share that enthusiasm, as Jin Nee reports.
Pence spoke about the president's support of the military on the eve of 9/11. Just a week before, an article in The Atlantic quoted sources accusing President Trump of making disparaging remarks about men and women who died in combat, calling them suckers and losers.
For all of those gathered here who will answer the call to serve, for our active duty military who are among us and looking on, I can tell you firsthand, in President Donald Trump, you have a commander-in-chief who will always have your back.
But retired Navy veteran Michael Gilmore said he thinks the current administration does not support the military. Gilmore says when he heard Trump say that men and women who died were suckers and losers, it made his stomach turn. He stood outside Cameron Hall with other protesters who said they thought Pence's speech so close to the election was nothing more than a photo op.
I leave here today confident that so long as America produces men and women like the cadets of VMI, men and women who are willing and able to stand up and defend our nation and build lives of consequences, I know the best days for America are yet to come. So thank you and God bless you.
VMI cadets seemed to enjoy the speech, greeting Pence with thunderous applause as he arrived an hour later than his scheduled appearance. Anna Armfield will be commissioning in the Navy after graduation. She said she agreed with Pence that the president has the military's best interest at heart. But protesters Renee Hasey and Michelle Watkins said they were disappointed VMI allowed the event, especially in the middle of a pandemic.
And we do not believe this is an appropriate event for anybody.
Neither cadets nor Pence seemed too concerned about gathering during the pandemic.
Vice President Mike Pence concluded his speech today by telling VMI students to be humble and disciplined in all of their pursuits. But most importantly, he told them that President Donald Trump and his administration were proud of them for their service, loyalty, and dedication to their country. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Jin Nee.
Virginia Military Institute is testing only symptomatic cadets for COVID-19. Next door, Washington and Lee is testing 400 students weekly and monitoring wastewater. But both schools have seen a rise in positive cases since they returned to Lexington. There are 3 positive cases at VMI and 13 at Washington and Lee. VMI spokesman Colonel Bill Wyatt said cadets are encouraged to stay on post. Face coverings and social distancing are also mandatory. Both schools are hoping that their protocol will be enough to make it through the term without an outbreak. Rockbridge area parents are scrambling to cope with a new school year in their living room instead of a classroom. Some have taken the unusual step of transferring their children out of Lexington schools to Rockbridge County elementary schools to get in-person instruction. Others have cut their work hours to help their children with virtual classwork. Lexington is feeling the effects of the pandemic in another way, a drop in tax revenue and therefore in city services. We're not alone, of course, but that's not much comfort for city leaders. Reporter Mary Alice Russell joins us live from City Hall to explain the challenges the city faces. Mary Alice, how's the Lexington city budget looking now?
Well, Donald, it looks a lot different than what it was expected to look like in March. The city budget allots for about a 10% tax revenue difference compared to previous years. Many budgets were cut, including road repaving, many organizations' budgets, as well as the recycling program for Lexington.
In international news, Barbados will remove Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state and become a republic by next year. The move makes Barbados the first country to drop the monarch in nearly 3 decades. The Barbadian Governor General said Tuesday the country must, quote, fully leave our colonial past behind. Barbados is set to become a republic as early as November 2021, when it celebrates its 55th anniversary of its independence from the British Empire. Queen Elizabeth is head of state of the United Kingdom and 15 other countries that were formerly under British rule. Barbados remains a member of the Commonwealth, a union of 54 countries that were mostly former British territories. Next on the Rockbridge Report, Tropical Storm Sally is slowly winding down, but plenty of danger is still to come. And later, the Rockbridge Area Recreation Organization is hosting events to keep kids active during the pandemic. And then, Illinois parents and students are begging for the return of school sports. Find out why.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Shauna Muckle. One person is dead and another is missing, according to the mayor of Orange Beach, Alabama, after Hurricane Sally left a trail of devastation throughout Alabama and Florida. But as the remnants of the storm move across the southeast, officials warn of more danger to come. Nadia Romero is in Mobile, Alabama with the latest.
The winds were high. It was whistling like I never heard anything before.
Residents along the Gulf Coast left stunned by Hurricane Sally.
Absolutely awestruck. I just can't believe what I'm seeing out here.
The storm tore through Alabama and Florida at an agonizing pace Wednesday, carving a path of destruction in its wake.
Well, it could be much worse. It's been mighty bad. And our state is reeling just as our people are hurting.
The record-breaking rainfall caused catastrophic flooding.
We had 30 inches of rain in Pensacola, 30 plus inches of rain, which is 4 months of rain in 4 hours at some point.
Roads and bridges now impassable and homes inundated.
It's really upsetting me because, you know, this is my home and I don't want to lose my home.
And more than 500,000 people across the region are without power. Some could be in the dark for days.
It may be until the weekend before we get some power areas restored.
Authorities say hundreds of people required rescue after rising waters left them stranded. As Sally is now moving through Georgia and the Carolinas, where conditions could cause flash flooding and tornadoes. Forecasters are now saying another tropical disturbance is building in the Gulf of Mexico and could develop into Wilfred, the last name on the list, later today. In Mobile, Alabama, I'm Nadia Romero.
Here's a beautiful shot of downtown Lexington. Now today we saw fall weather begin in earnest as we had a high of 63 degrees. And tonight we're going to have a low of 62 with fairly low wind speed at 4 miles per hour, but fairly high humidity at 100% as the rain continues to fall. Now, as you can see, throughout all of the Western Virginia region, we're seeing a lot of rainfall. And in neighboring cities, we're seeing similar temperatures in the mid to low 60s. In Lexington, we have 63, whereas up in Stanton, we have 62. Down in Lynchburg, we have 65 degrees, and in Charlottesville, we have the high of 66. Meanwhile, to the west, in Covington, we have 63 degrees, and for the 5-day forecast for the rest of the week in Lexington, we're going to see an end to the rainfall beginning Friday, where it's going to have a high of 73 degrees. It'll be a cloudy day. And starting this weekend, we're going to see temperatures drop with highs in the mid-60s and lows in the low 40s, another sign that fall weather is fast approaching. On Tuesday, we see the highs pick a bit back up again at 73 degrees, but again, still lows in the mid-40s. Up next on the Rockbridge Report, the corpse flower is attracting tourists in California to experience the sights and smells of the rare plant.
Rockbridge Area Recreation Organization is hosting football clinics in both Buena Vista and Lexington for children ages 8 to 13. Visit the website for more information at raorec.org. As the coronavirus continues to be a threat, some parents and students in Illinois are urging political leaders to bring back after-school sports. Jesse Kirsch tells us the reason why they are advocating for it.
Dozens of Chicago area student athletes, parents, and community members calling for the expanded return of high school sports.
This decision will determine if I get a chance to earn a scholarship or not.
At this McCook rally, Wheaton-Warrenville South student Jalen Brown worried about his senior football and basketball seasons. High school sports advocate Joe Trost says some Chicago public school students could be at even more of a disadvantage after last year's teachers' strike.
Imagine being a 17-year-old kid. Last year you went through the CTU strike and you lost the end of your season, and then again here your senior year realizing that you could lose it again.
Trost and others point to neighboring states which have started off the school year with events such as football, seemingly without major COVID-19 complications. Plainfield Central senior Kaylee Doms feels safe enough right now to travel to Indiana and Missouri for club soccer matches.
Just don't go around high-fiving people, just know what you can and can't do.
The rally comes as IHSA confirms it sent Governor Pritzker a letter requesting back control over making decisions about when high school sports resume.
Get back to the table, look at the data, realize that, hey, you made a decision in July, early August, you can make an adjustment now.
Members of the crowd, including clinical social worker Adam Russo, also thinking of a University of Wisconsin study, finding significant increases in anxiety and depression for high school athletes during the pandemic as they've lost their outlet.
Kids aren't built for this. They want to be social, they want to be active.
This event, the crowd here focusing in on high school sports, but also voicing concerns about e-learning.
States around us figured it out. Why can't we?
Do you smell something? That may be what's on the minds of locals in a California town, where a rotten-smelling rare flower is turning heads and watering eyes. Jeremy Roth has today's Take a Look at This.
One giant smelly flower in California is causing quite a stink.
Smells like death.
We're gonna puke and die.
The nearly 7-foot-tall Amorphophallus titanum, or corpse flower, gets its name from its unique pollinator-attracting odor.
It gives off different sulfur compounds.
Could you be more specific?
The odor of garbage and rotting flesh.
Glad I asked. Science teacher C.J. Addington is the flower's caretaker at Roseville High School, the only high school in the world, he says, that's been able to bloom a corpse flower. And that funky feat is turning heads and attracting visitors both online and in person to savor the sights and smells of this natural phenomenon. Addington says the foul flower is right at home in a year that, frankly, stinks.
It's sort of like a little breath of fresh air.
Hey, you know what else stinks? The New York City Marathon, normally run annually in November, has been canceled because, well, 2020. But hey, that didn't stop a local legend from hitting the bricks anyway. Gary Murphy, winner of the very first New York City Marathon in 1970, recreated the iconic moment by running a 6-mile lap of the original route with his grandson. So what fuels this 80-year-old's still fit and fast feet?
I don't know what motivates me, but I think that if I stop running, I'd probably die. But I'm going to continue to run as long as I can.
For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
Donald LeCompte, and the rest of the Rockbridge Report team, I'm Lily Mott. Good evening.